floor is yours.
So thanks so much. Happy New Year to our family members, our parents, and our community representatives. Joining me today, and I really appreciate Dr. Tracy Jones, who is our Supervisor of Health Services, who will be joining me as part of the update today. So thank you so much, Dr. Jones, for always being supportive of SECAC, so that you can hear directly from our expert who is helping to navigate our COVID guidance based on the update. So she's going to share some updates with you related to the updated guidance. So again, thank you, Dr. Jones, for joining me today. So we thank always our board members as well as Dr. Golson for her leadership. And as we know, through this whole COVID experience over the last 2 years, she has been steadfast and unwavering to her commitment of safety and in making sure that staff, students, and families are safe, and the decisions that she has made to help navigate these COVID waters. So we do appreciate her leadership and all that she has done, even as a superintendent standing alone, as the only sole district sometimes in the decisions that she's made for Prince George's County students and families. So we just definitely appreciate her leadership. Just a few updates that I did want to share related to where we are as a district. Dr. Golson did provide a town hall meeting on January 12th for our parents and community members. You'll see the link on the very bottom where it talks about our temporary K-6 virtual learning program will conclude this Friday, January 28th. I wanted to make sure for those families and community members who may not have gotten the opportunity to hear directly from Dr. Golson, I did provide the link in the PowerPoint presentation. It's also on our website so that you have an opportunity to hear directly from Dr. Golson as well as Dr. Carter, who is our health officer for Prince George's County, as well as hear some of the Q&A that was part of that town hall. So I wanted to make sure you were aware of that particular town hall meeting, and I gave you the direct link. During that meeting, she talked about that home test kits and KN95 masks will be distributed to students and staff. For the kits that are being distributed to the schools, each kit does contain 2 tests that will be available for each child that's enrolled in our school. We also are doing a distribution for our non-public parents, and that communication did go out through our schools to our parents regarding the non-public distribution and how we will be handling that, since we will be doing that more centralized out of our John Carroll building. We also know that as part of that town hall, she did share that students will be requested to test weekly in order to return to school the following week. And there were more details that were shared. We also wanted you to know that there is on the website a place where the results can be uploaded from January 23rd through February 27th. And the link is now live on our website. Also, I wanted you to know that there is an intentional effort to have more students randomly tested in our weekly pool. So initially we had 10% of our students being tested. We've now doubled that capacity with our vendors to 20% of our students being tested. Again, parents must give consent to the testing. The other thing that you'll be hearing about that Dr. Jones will be sharing is those new county and state guidelines regarding the implementation of our COVID guidance and quarantine rules that are aligned to the Center for Disease Control. So Dr. Jones will be touching upon that a little bit in her presentation. We also wanted folks to know that our staff testing was expanded during our virtual learning, and that all employees, so whether you're vaccinated or not, they were able to get a free COVID testing that was provided by Prince George's County, because we had we experienced, as you all may know, and you probably have heard it on the news, there was definitely a critical shortage of being able to obtain either rapid or even PCR testing in our community. So they did make that available to all employees regarding of their status. We will still continue with the requirement that unvaccinated staff must continue to submit weekly testing results or be tested weekly, with results being shared with our district. The other thing Dr. Golson shared in the town hall is that any spectators, they will not be allowed at any of our athletic events through the end of this month. And that starting Tuesday, February 1st, attendance at athletic events will be limited to 25% of the building capacity. So that is something that she also shared. But again, I encourage all of you, if you've not had an opportunity, to please listen to that town hall meeting on January 12th. And Marcy, if you can just select the link just so they can see the landing page that it takes you to, that's directly on the website. So you can see that it's provided right now in English as well as Spanish. So again, all of your stakeholders that you may work with as family members or community members, if you could please definitely share the link to our community and other families, through your distribution list so that they are aware of the information that was shared. Thanks so much, Marcy. Just wanted them to kind of see the screenshot. On the next slide, we have some additional updates that we wanted to share. As it relates to how you can support our students. Supporting our students is also, of course, supporting the Department of Special Education. But I really want to start by saying, and I appreciate Ms. Williams highlighting that about the patience and knowing and recognizing that our school teams are doing all that they can to navigate this COVID environment. And I just appreciate your continued patience working with us. It has been an unprecedented school year, as you know, and you've heard this not only from local school districts in Maryland, our district, you've heard it nationally. It continues to be a challenging year, particularly as it relates to having teachers in front of our students, having bus drivers doing our routes for us and other team members. So one thing that you can always do to help support our students, our schools, is to help with recruiting. We definitely need teachers. We were fortunate to get some teachers with December graduation. So we were recruited and we were able to, fill some of those vacancies with December graduates. We still are in need of significant substitute teachers. We still, as you know, need bus drivers and other pertinent staff members. So I provided the link here for the Prince George's County Career and Job Opportunities, where you can see all of the positions that we have available. And last month I did talk a little bit about how we're mitigating our vacancies, our special ed vacancies. We have team members that are working evenings, weekends, still to continue to provide services for our students. We also have support plans where we actually have central office team members going in to teach. I had the opportunity to do that in November and December, really working with our school teams to help fill in the gap. So we are, working to really look at school by school where we have high numbers of special ed vacancies. Our central office team members are providing services as well as case management services to students where we have, or to schools where we have high vacancies. So we definitely, have developed a migration plan to look at how we can support. The related service area is the area that we're most impacted is with speech and language pathologists. So we have entered into emergency contracts. We have rolled other school districts in the state, out of the state, their contracts. We have expanded the use of telehealth through additional contracts, emergency contracts, where we're continuing to provide, those services. And the team did a great job communicating with families, letting them know the options. So again, we have some students that are getting their speech and language, although not necessarily ideal, because we do like to provide that in the natural environment, but we didn't want students to go months and months without services. So we had about 40 of our own speech and language pathologists enter into second assignment agreements where they are assisting to provide speech and language services either in the evening or on the weekend as we continue to work with our families. So I just want you to know that we definitely recognize the impact of our vacancies. We will continue, as we always have in the past, to hold compensatory impact IEP meetings for those students who have had vacancies or services not provided, and continue to look at our students individually to be able to provide or mitigate, the vacancies or the services not being provided. So we'll continue to do that. The other thing I wanted families to be aware is on our website, we do have a link here for the winter enrichment packets. Families are always asking, how can I support my child at home? So our curriculum and instruction, and some parents may not realize that, but we do enrichment packets for the winter as well as the spring and the summer. So if you click right on the winter enrichment packets, you'll be able to see some of those packets that are available from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade to help support our students, along with the answer keys that are part of those packets. I wanted to highlight that for you as well as a resource. I think the other big piece of how you can support our students in schools is, encouraging our students, of course, to wear their masks. If children are sick, please keep them home if they have any of those COVID symptoms, and continue, to get, consider getting your child vaccinated. We are, of course, partnering with our health department and the school system and holding those after school vaccination clinics. Each clinic will have Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson supply. We know that right now only Pfizer is available for kids 5 to 11. Marcy, if you click on the vaccinated clinic, I just wanted to highlight the information regarding the locations. They're throughout the county, and then they have the dates. So you can see where they were given dosage 1, dosage 2, but it runs all the way through the next month or so. So I wanted to make sure we highlighted that for you, so that you are aware of those. And then again, allow your child to be randomly tested for weekly testing. Our goal is to increase capacity to 20% of our students. So we did give you the link for the permission slip here. And then the one thing that we always say is, that we try to operate always in a spirit of transparency. One of the things that our school teams must do, if there is a special ed vacancy that impacts your child, they should be sending you home a letter and discussing in that letter the supports that will be provided in the interim, or how they will be supporting your child. We are increasing our training for our paraprofessionals in some schools who are helping to bridge the gap and support in the interim, but we do have high vacancies. So that's an example of one of the activities that may be on a school support plan, but we definitely, under Dr. Gozen's leadership, want to operate in full transparency to let you know exactly what's happening. And so we appreciate your collaborative partnership and your ongoing communication with the school and your child's teacher as we navigate those. So those are just some examples of ways that you can help support our students and our schools during this time.
Hey, Janelle, we have a question in the chat, and it's related to the testing standards that you just talked about for PGCPS. And one parent had a question about the non-publics. They said, I understand non-public schools do not have to follow the same protocols regarding testing as PGCPS. So although they may have access to the test, they're not required to take them as the rest of PGCPS. So how can we provide, or how does it provide an equitable level of safety for those students that are in non-public? And what is the recourse for a parent who wants their non-public students to be safe amidst this very contagious Omicron variant?
Right. And so that's why we are providing the testing kits for our non-public students, as well as the masks that are being provided to our public school. The fortunate piece that I've seen through the non-public schools, particularly that service our students, is they really do follow a lot of the guidelines from the Center for Disease Control. We did review many of them at the beginning of the school year, kind of what their plans would be for students as it related to different components around safety of COVID. And they are following the CDC guidelines, many of them. If there are specific concerns at a specific school, I'm happy to follow up with our non-public office, but we definitely stay in close communication with them as it relates to our students. And each school definitely is required to have a plan as required by the Maryland State Department of Education. So just like we have a district-wide plan, each non-public school also has a plan as it relates to safety and the guidelines that they're following because of COVID.
Yeah, I can see where that could be a challenge, because you could have some non-public schools that are in political jurisdictions that may be a little bit more liberal or lenient with the policies. And so I would know that would be a concern for, our parents to have children in the non-public schools. So so we have a parent that would like to follow up with you on that.
Absolutely. I'll give you my email address, and then you can follow directly up with me so that we can, I'm happy to set up a meeting with our non-public supervisor, Dr. Anthony Wright, as a follow-up with High Road. So I'll put my email address in there, and please feel free to send me a follow-up email related to the concerns that you have as it relates to their guidelines, if you feel like they're not being followed or anything to that effect. And we can follow up accordingly. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Again, we want to make sure you are aware that the Family Support Center is here to support you. We have 4 wonderful team members that do the work of our Family Support Center and outreach to families. They are available with a variety of resources. So once you get the PowerPoint, you'll be able to link to the resources that are provided. We're going to just highlight some of our workshops and calendar events that are coming up, but you definitely, I encourage everyone, if you're not subscribed, to please sign up for our newsletter and to get updates. So for example, we had an update that came from one of our community partners that they were actually providing vaccinations to children as well as families who definitely have expertise in working with children and adults with disabilities. That was an example of pushing out information that we wanted to make sure families were aware of. So I reached out to our Family Support Center and said, please, send this out through our distribution list, as well as reaching out to our SECAC committee to send out through there. So I definitely would encourage you, if you have not signed up, to please subscribe to our newsletter, as well as the other resources that are available. That includes our YouTube channel, that every presentation training that we do is on our YouTube channel, where you can actually go back and listen to the presentations. Marcy's going to pull that up for you. So we keep all of them here so that if families have missed a particular training or specific topic that we presented on, that you can actually go out to our Family Support YouTube channel and really have access to that information. There's a question, is there a period between the first and last name for email purposes? And are you speaking about our emails?
Trinell, I think there wasn't one when you typed your email.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, let me retype it. It is a period. Thank you so much, Ms. Bryan, for bringing that up. Let me resend it. Thank you so much. I didn't have a period. But yes, most of our email addresses do have a period between our first and last name. Some people have been with us so long, they actually don't have a period in their email address. So thank you for highlighting that. I just corrected it and sent it out in the chat. The other thing that we've been doing this year is support groups for parents to help them support students that may have behavior challenges, as well as parent wellness support groups. So again, we encourage you definitely to sign up. And when you get the PowerPoint, you'll be able to sign up for those sessions and links. I think the number one thing that we've recognized, particularly with our parent wellness support group, is that there are times where, as a parent, there's a lot going on with you and your family dynamics, as well as your job and the things that you're expected to do. And so we want to make sure that we were supporting you around your refueling and giving you a space where other parents, we welcome that wellness support group. And I know that our social worker, Yvonne, will tell you that those sessions, I'm sure, are very, very beneficial for our families. We're pleased to have the support group for behavior challenges supported by our very own board certified behavior analysts in Dr. Dea T and Yvonne Alley. So they help support along with Scott Showalter, who's in psychological services, who previously served as our mental health coordinator and now is a supervisor in psychological services. So they support the particular support group. And then again, we talked about the Family Support Center newsletter to please make sure you sign up for that. And then our 11th annual Parent Empowerment Conference will be on March 19th, 2022 is where it's tentatively scheduled. So we wanted to make sure that we save the date, and we'll have Dan and Samuel Habib back with us, which is great, to really talk about their experiences as it relates to the having a disability and supporting a child with a disability. All right, so I'm going to turn the rest of my portion of the time over to Dr. Jones. She is our wonderful health services supervisor and just does a yeoman's job of navigating and giving guidance and helping to support us. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jones to lend her expertise to address any questions you have and provide you with updates.
So Chanel, how much time do I have? Because I know initially we were supposed to be done by then. So I know the timing looked like it's supposed to be over at 7:30, and I can talk for 30 minutes or more. So I'm just asking.
So Troy, you want to give her like 15 minutes and adjust the calendar, adjust on the back end, or how much time, Troy?
Let's try to do 10 minutes because we want to make sure Ms. Tucker has enough time to do what she needs to do.
Got it.
I know even though we're virtual and not traveling, we still want to be respectful of people's time and not run too far past 8 o'clock.
Yep.
Okay,
All right, Dr. Jones.
Okay, so I'm saying that I'm just going to talk. I have my slides in my background. You all won't see them, but I'll just talk for my slides. So let me just start by saying thank you for having me. And please know that the information I am giving you right now at 6:59 on 1/25/22 is the latest information. It changes. It's ever revolving and ever changing. And so I just need to put that disclaimer out. I just want to highlight some of the changes that were made with the new updates from CDC. One of the biggest changes is that if you test positive, regardless of your vaccination status, you stay home for 5 days and you have to isolate. The first day of isolation is either the day after you test positive or the day after you are symptomatic. So if you test positive on the first, your first day of isolation won't be until January 2nd. When you return, you can return on day 6. You have to do 5 full days of isolation. And the only time when you return for day 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 is that you can have your mask removed is when you are eating. And even when you're eating, you should be 6 feet apart. For students that test positive, they too can return on day 6, but on day 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, they cannot participate in choir. They cannot do exercising or sports because those are classified as high-risk activities. For our pre-K and ECC students, if they have a confirmed positive, the students stay home 10 days and staff stay home 5. If it's the same for both the positive students and for those who are close contacts, they should stay home for 10 days. And the reason being is because they are not always able to correctly and consistently wear a well-fitting mask. They are not able to adhere to the social physical distancing. And it is difficult for them to avoid sharing of items between individuals. So because of that, they do get 10 days. If someone who is exposed to COVID-19, if they are fully vaccinated, a fully vaccinated individual is classified as somebody who has had their booster shot or has had their Pfizer within the last 5 months, their Moderna within the last 6 months, or their J&J within the last 2 months. So they're ineligible to receive a booster. They can continue to stay at work or at school. However, they must test on day 5. And again, day 5 is your 5 days begin the day after the last day of exposure. If somebody does not have their booster or is outside of, the 5 months, 6 months, or 6 months or 2 months for each of the vaccines, then they too can stay out. They have to stay out for 5 days. In order for them to return, they have to return on day 6 with a negative test. They have to have a negative test. That the test can be an antigen or a rapid test. It does not have to be a PCR. And they can test on or after the 5th day. So if somebody doesn't test until the 6th day, then they can come back on the 7th day. And as always, we encourage everybody to stay home if they do not feel well. For individuals who have a confirmed positive test and they've tested within the last 90 days of being positive, they do not need to test again. But we need to have proof that they actually tested when their actual 90 days begin. This 90-day rule, we do have 2 exceptions. If somebody becomes symptomatic, then yes, they should test regardless of whether they have tested positive within the last 90 days. And then those athletes who are participating will also need to test on Sundays and weekly through the vaccinated process. Also, there has been some questions about close contact members, people who are positive, and those who are exposed. So if they are able to separate totally from those people who are positive, the close contacts can do their 5-day quarantine at the same time that the positive person is doing their 5 days of isolation. They can do them at the same time. However, if the person who is positive is unable to stay away from everybody else, then the positive person does their 5 days, and then when they hit their day 6, that becomes day 1 of the close contacts. For example, we know that children who are positive, the parents oftentimes have to continue to help them. So with that being said, their child would do the 5 days, and then on day 6 would be the parents' day 1 of their quarantine time. In that, I'm trying to keep within my time frame. One other thing that we do talk a lot about is the definition of a well-fitting mask. It needs to fit snugly against the side of the face, and it doesn't have any gaps. It should have a wire going across the nose to prevent air from leaking out of the top, and it should completely cover the mouth and nose. We also recommend that, there's additional masks just in case it gets wet or soiled. We do not recommend bandanas and gaiters at this time because they have found that the fabric is, the particles can actually get through the cloth mask. So in that case, CDC is recommending double masking. And I think my time is up, so I will stop here and answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. The only question that I have is, could you make your presentation available so that we can post it on the SECAC website?
So let me work on that, because what I'm doing is I have one PowerPoint that I give everybody, the principals, the secretaries, the bus lots, and I just picked a couple of slides out to just highlight for you all.
Oh, okay. Okay, all righty. Well, thank you again. If nobody has any questions, we'll keep moving forward. Thank you, Dr. Jones, again. Thank you for your great work and keeping us informed. Now we're going to transition on to Ms. Michelle Tucker, who is going to talk to us about transition. So let's welcome Ms. Michelle Tucker.
And good evening, everyone. Thank you for welcoming me back. I have spoken with this group before in previous years, so I always love to come back and share from the standpoint of both an employee with the special education department within Prince George's County Public Schools, but in addition to being a parent who has gone through all of these transitions and not quite finished. I have a couple more in school, so I'll continue to go through some of these transitions and engage in conversations with my fellow parents going through the same. In the chat window, I dropped a link to a slide, and it's It's the last slide of my presentation, which actually has like the 5 key things that I'm going to talk about for each transition, a couple links to some resources that I'd highly encourage you to use, and then my email address in case you ask for it, in case you want it. So on the agenda, I am Michelle Tucker. I see some familiar faces and names on this line outside of my colleagues within the Department of Special Education who may know me as Michelle Whitfield. Same person, Michelle is good. So in terms of what I wanted to make sure that I'm able to cover during these next few moments is talking about what to expect during the different transitions and how we can help our students with their self-advocacy as they go through the transitions. So a little bit about my journey. I have 5 children, 5 biological children. I'll say I have a couple extras that tend to lean on me as well. But though the 5 big rocks or the 5 tips that I learned throughout my journey as a parent, and this is dated some years ago because my daughter is no longer a baby. She's 8 going on 80 at this point. But those 5 things that I've learned, and I'll talk about it for each transition, is that you have to, as a parent, and then gradually you'll bring your child into this conversation, you have to understand what are the developmental markers in terms of where that child needs to be at that point compared to their non-disabled peers, or just compared to their peers, whether or not they have a disability. Know and understand their strengths and their areas for improvement. And I always say we start out this journey as a parent, but we bring our child into it because they have to have some of this understanding as they get older. Investigate supports that help, determine the location of the resources that we need and that our children need, and then take time to practice and model anything we're going to want them to do when they are not around us. We have to model what it looks like when you're doing it for yourself, and we have to give them an opportunity to practice. So I'll start with that early childhood to elementary transition. I've had several children, I'll say 3 of my children actually went from I take that back, four of them went from a school-based, public school-based early childhood experience to elementary school. I've had 1 do it as a student with a disability. So that's a picture of my young man here. He's actually 11 now. And I'll say out of those 5 tips that I shared, the 3 that helped me and Sam the most as we went through this early childhood to elementary transition was understanding developmentally where he was expected to be.
Michelle, I'm going to interrupt you for just
Go
1
ahead.
second. I'm sorry. Do you have a slide presentation that you're showing?
Oh,
I'm
so sorry. I'm just talking and talking. Thank you, Marcy, because I'm thinking I'm sharing and I'm not. So let me thank you, Marcy. Didn't realize that. And you made me a co-host so I could share, and I didn't do it. But I'll start here. So those are the 5 tips. So if you opened the link that I dropped in the chat, you'll see these 5 tips listed on that sheet as well. So we will go through, I'll go through those, even in the time that I have, I'll go through them briefly for each of the transitions. So starting with my young man, Sam, the 3 out of the 5, not that I didn't use all 5 in his transition from early childhood to elementary, but the 3 that really helped me the most and probably helped Sam the most and his educators that I was working with the most was for me to understand the developmental markers. What was expected for a child to be able to go into elementary school? Because they are transitioning from, hey, we're working on, just playing and communicating and following the routines of being around other kids and social skills, that focus of the our early childhood centers, to really thinking about now we have to talk about academics. And how is your child, with those pre-academic skills? Are they still working on some of those skills we would expect for a student to work on in terms of our early childhood standards? So understanding his developmental markers and realizing that he needed more support than what a normal comprehensive elementary school could provide for him. So once I had an understanding, and definitely this was a conversation that despite being a special educator, I was not trained in early childhood. I really did have to work with my colleagues in the schools to understand, well, where is the location of the resources that he's going to need, and then practice and model any of those skills that he had picked up on in early childhood center. So the biggest thing for Sam was his communication. So we were always practicing his communication. When he ended up transitioning to a device because the picture communication symbols or sign language were not working as a primary mode of communication for him, we had to take that little device with us everywhere. It went to grandma's house, it went to the store, it went in the car. His siblings, his older siblings are like, nope, he had to make him ask you using his device. So that was that biggest thing for him is practicing those communication skills, because as he transitioned, he had to learn how to communicate with his voice, and even if it's his electronic voice, and that's how we refer to it, that Sam is using his voice, that he had to be able to do that. Because the students, when they move away from being in our bosom early childhood, they have to start at least speaking for themselves, communicating for themselves in some kind of way, as they are spending more and more time with folks who are not us. So for that transition, that was, those two big rocks for me that I really leaned on. Then when we look from elementary to middle school, still within the 5, and the child that I have pictured here is my child who, despite being identified as talented and gifted, also has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and he is the hyperactive type. So as he was in elementary school, he had real good teachers that just kept him busy. They realized he was smart. They were always giving him engaging, enriching work. But as he was making that transition to elementary to middle, then the focus starts to become more of what is the student doing, and not so much in terms of always leaning on the teachers to direct him. So there were some additional development, not having recess, despite philosophy is on that in middle school. But those were those standards he was going to be expected to meet. So he and I began to have those conversations around, well, what are you doing well with? What are you struggling with? What helps you? We engaged in a lot of conversations, and it was at the end of his 6th grade year that we decided to use medication for him, to help get him through some of those tougher adolescent years, because he would say, I'm having a tough time focusing. So part of that self-advocacy is having those conversations with them and getting their take on it in terms of, is this good? How are you feeling? Do you need more? What teachers can you lean on? Who are you able to talk to in the building? Which classes are you more able to maintain in, and which classes do you need a little bit more help based on the teaching styles or the strategies that are used, and starting to engage him in that conversation. We had to have a lot of talk around how he requested the help that he needed, because he was not always requesting it in a way that the teachers interpreted as being respectful. So we had some conversations around that in terms of, yes, I know you need it, but this is how you ask for it. You can't just go and demand it. This is how you need to ask for that, and reach out to your teacher and see them as a partner in your education, because mommy's not in class with you anymore in middle school. You went from having 2 teachers at most to now you have 5, 6 teachers. So you are going to have to learn how to code shift or code switch between classes, because not everybody has the same personality. And yes, it may be that we may see that, hey, Michelle, sounds like you were putting a lot of expectations on your child. Well, him being able to code switch between 6 or 7 teachers, and we as adults have to code switch between probably 6 and 7 people per hour, that we have to start putting those higher level expectations on our children, and then helping guide them through, and again, modeling that, letting them practice that with you. My son who's posted here, and you'll see that all 5 of those steps are kind of highlighted for my son, Michael. Michael was another student, had some of those IQ scores in the really high range. Michael also had a learning disability. He did not get an IEP till he was into his 6th grade year, you know, still kind of making that transition to middle school. He had a tougher time with that transition from middle to high. Michael's a very quiet young man. He's still very quiet young man. So we had to do a lot of understanding where he was, and me bringing him into that conversation and bringing him into the IEP meeting and prepping before the IEP meeting to when that paperwork came home. Okay, Michael, let's go through this paperwork. And what does this paperwork mean? Where are your strengths areas? Where are those areas you need a little bit more support? What are those things that teachers do that help you? What are those things that you really, they may say that you need it, but you really don't want to use it. You know, they're giving you the opportunity to use a calculator, but you really don't want to use a calculator. Okay, that's fine. Let's talk about that. And what are you going to use instead? Because you're still going to be expected to meet these same level expectations as your peers who may want the calculator, but can't get it. So having those conversations, having the conversations around who are the staff members that you can go to when you need somebody to help you advocate for yourself or someone to speak for yourself. Him being able to speak up in his own IEP meeting. And that we were practicing the night before. What is it that you want to say? Let's write it down. What are the questions you want to ask? What is it that you don't understand you want them to talk with you about in the meeting, and where do you think your goal should be? And having those conversations. I always say the earlier the better. Even if they're younger ages, get something with pictures on it and let them give you input in terms of what they like and what they don't like. Let them come into the room and at least see the folks. If they're kindergarten, 1st grade, let them come into the room and see the folks who are meeting about them, say what they have to say, or just sit by you for a little while and then go on back to class. There's a story I like to share with folks. Is called the IEP party birthday. Is the IEP birthday party, and it talks about the fact that these adults plan this IEP meeting every year, and they don't invite the child until they're 16, 17. And the child knows the meeting is occurring. The child knows that you're coming to the school and you're talking to all of the adults, but you don't actually include them until they get older. And by that point, they may not feel invested. They may not feel like they really have input or they can help steer that conversation. So the earlier we bring them in, even if just for a snippet of time, and we don't have to say IEP until you're ready for your child to understand their disability, but we can talk about strengths and weaknesses. We can talk about the fact that your parent and your teachers are coming together to come up with a plan to best educate you. And let them have some input on that, even if they're not ready to understand their true disability. And then that shift from high school and beyond. So I have 3 adult children, 2 elementary age children, but out of my 3 adult children, they've all done a little bit of college, all done a year or 2 of college. A couple of them decided, hey, college is not for me, I'm going to work. But even despite whether they're going to college, they're going to work, is still that transition. And if you have any adult children living in your house or have lived in your house, you know that they don't become adults overnight. My son walks around with a coffee cup that says adulting is hard, or I didn't sign up for adulting, is something like that, which they have to get there, and we have to help them get there. What I can say has been the biggest support for both my son Seth on the left, who's currently in college, and my son Michael on the right, who is working, and he's been successfully working for the same employer for about 7-8 years now, is that they have to understand what supports they need. Seth was another one of those students who were identified as TAG, as gifted, talented and gifted, but he did have some social anxieties. So we did a lot of practicing of him talking to people outside of the house. Just ordering at McDonald's as a middle schooler was hard for him. So having those conversations, okay, what is it that you want to order? I need you to talk, because I'm not going to always be in McDonald's with you. I need you to, structure this email. Let's talk about how you're going to structure the email to your advisor now as a college student, so that you're able to reach out and ask and advocate for what it is that you need. And if they don't get back to you, guess what? You're paying for that education. They get paid to help you. You call them. And if they don't answer the phone, then you go see them. But you don't just kind of just sit and it's like, oh, well, they didn't help me. No, you have to kind of get out there and advocate for yourself, because they're going to get a paycheck whether or not they help you. So you have to make sure that you're able to know, where do you need to go to get certain things done? And then let's talk about the conversation you're going to have with that person when you get there. For Michael, a lot of it was him understanding, now that I have transitioned from school to work, what are those things that I need? Do I need to be able to write down the recipes that I'm going to cook? Do I need those visuals still with me so that I don't forget? Do I need some help with the conversions from the fractions? Because I really, math really wasn't my thing, and I can't quickly convert those fractions over that I need to, whether I'm doing a double order or a half order. So them understanding and reflecting on, this is what I need. This is how I can get what I need. Hey, mom, what do you think about this? So that I'm able to practice talking to those persons that I need to talk to, in order to get those things done for me as an adult. Because we all know being adult doesn't mean that you stop needing support. The support just may be coming from a different place. I did drop into the chat window a link to this slide with those 5 tips on there, those things that I've learned on my journey as a parent and as an educator. What I will say in that box here, these are actually hyperlinked. I'mDetermined.org. I'm pretty sure that several of you have gone to that website before. It's not a new website. It's put out through an organization in Virginia. I'm originally from Virginia, so I'm very familiar with it. But they have a lot of good resources that parents can use, and educators and students can use for self-advocacy and self-determination. I was first kind of enamored with them when I found where they had PowerPoint presentations that students can make, even younger students with support, to be able to present within their IEP meeting in terms of, these are the things that I do well, these are the areas where I need help. And this is what I want to say to the adults in this room, whether or not I stay throughout the whole meeting. The other link that's there, the developmental bookmarks, this is something that was a saving grace for me as a parent, because even though I'm an educator, even though I have degrees in psychology and special education and all that good stuff, when it comes to your child, sometimes you have to be reminded in terms of what is developmentally appropriate for our child at that age. So we know, okay, yeah, this is something that will just pass. This is how I can support this child. So I like to share these developmental bookmarks. If you ever have the chance to purchase or come across or rent or download, and it may be free on Audible, I haven't checked, Yardsticks. That is another nice book in terms of giving us an understanding of those developmental markers, especially if that's not what we went to school for. But in case you're unable to actually get the book, then these are bookmarks. And what the bookmarks do, and they have them by age, it gives you an idea, and it's from age birth to 19, that it gives you an idea of where that child would be, some of the behaviors you would see out of the child at that age, and the things that we can do as parents to support them at that age. So I do like to share these so that you'll have it. Whether or not you actually turn it into a bookmark is up to you, but at least it'll be a reference for you as you're supporting your children. So I think I still stayed within my scheduled time. I wanted to make sure that I finished at 7:30.